Welcome to the podcast.
Gracias.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for inviting.
Please introduce yourself and tell me, what are you doing? Like, why are we talking today? What are you all about?
I'm trying to figure that out as well.
Perfect.
But my name is Daniel Mora. I'm a Costa Rican that moved here like 7 years ago. And I'm a musician, I'm a sound healer. That's what I say for work stuff, but I feel I'm more of a creator. Like, it's a bit more broad than that. But music is what pays my bills.
Let's start with there, because you have my attention at music. And then you also said sound healer, which to me sounds, it's a pretty hippie term.
It is.
And I'll confess, years past, when people like tell me they're a sound healer, like immediately in my mind, it's like, oh, they either have a lot of money or they don't need any money, because to survive in Nosara, you have to pay your bills. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how to make a good enough living to pay your Nosara type bills being a sound healer. Mm-hmm. So my mind just instantly goes there. Uh-huh. That being said, I had a head injury and I had a lot of stuff happen, and these solfeggio frequencies that came across, now I understand why John Sibo and sound bass and all of it, now I'm starting to get it, because I go to sleep, I wake up, and in my day, it's literally changing my life. Mm-hmm. And it's through these frequencies at different tones. And now when I get really stressed or if I'm having problems with my brain, I go listen. I even have one that goes through the different sounds and it like clears my mind out. And I don't know how to explain it. Mm-hmm. So it's very hippie. I think I'm turning sort of hippie because now I like to play music. I'm tuning my guitars to 432 hertz sometimes. And now I'm playing sound bowls and like trying to make music out of it. And I think that's why we're talking today.
Yes, it's interesting because it's like a shift in the world, right? Like no one knew about sound healing like 20 years ago. It feels like a recent concept, but at the same time, it has been in every spiritual practice for as long as we know.
What's that all about, man? That's 100% the case 20 years ago. That was my point. If you told me 20 years ago you were a sound healer, I'm like, okay, I don't have time for this. I'm just being upfront. Mm-hmm. Now if you say it, I'm like, oh, are you playing 432? What are you doing? Where's your solfeggios? I'm like,
that's hilarious.
Hey, so that's the lesson. As you get older, you never know what's going to happen. So try not to say never very often.
Yes, I agree on that. Yeah, you know, for me, it was like I wanted to live from music and I didn't know how to pay my bills. I didn't want to be playing at bars all my life. And
playing cover songs in bars to pay your rent?
No, thank you. And the other option that is like becoming a rock star and playing in stadiums felt like, I'm not sure if that's my path. And it somehow revealed itself, you know? It was like, I was doing sound healing in San Jose because I was born there. And people were like, sound healer? Because I have a degree in business. You know, I had a very different background. And then suddenly I turned to this like sound healing thing.
Focus on that point. Suddenly I turned, whenever I hear those words, I pause for a second.
Yeah, it's not suddenly.
Yeah.
But my family went through economical struggles. So, you know, my mom and dad have like very formal jobs. You know, my mom is a judge, my dad is an engineer.
You almost had a formal job.
Almost. I did have, and I...
You choose to go hippie.
Is it a choice?
I don't know, I'm asking you.
But what I know is that I chose the truth. You know, I wasn't feeling honest in the way I was living somehow. There was something feeling off. You know, this feeling of like, there has to be something more to life than just working for money and making a house and, you know, the idea of life.
It sounds like by saying the words idea of life, it sounds like you're talking about more than just artist disease. Yours, it sounds like you went fully in. Like your shirt today is hilarious. It sounds like you really went in.
Yeah, not everyone likes it though. It brings challenges, right? You've been exploring music, you know, it's like, if you were like curious of how do you get to live from music in Nosara.
I'm dying to know.
Yeah, it's a mysterious path, I would say. But, you know, like, actually, the reason why I came to live to Nosara is because a guy was looking for sound healers for his new retreat center, and there was no sound healers back in the day, Costa Ricans at least. So he offered us a job to come, like with my ex-partner, and it just unfolded, you know. It was,
So the vortex of Nosara sucked you in.
yes.
And I'm only half kidding, because on this podcast over the years, many people you would never expect, they're like, there has to be a vortex. It's too sticky, it's too weird. And also, some people show up and they hate it. Like, Nosara is not for everyone.
Yeah.
It's for some people, but when it hits, it hits. It's very addictive. Like, more people who travel around the world all the time, they come here and they come back. That's the interesting thing I've learned through my job. So, and those people don't know they're being hippie. It seems like it's just happening at every level, from your business person who's just trying to get a relaxation to you who's not going to do the hardcore job and you're willing to go full sound healer. Nosara, it's just sticky, man. So you're here, you're sticking. I would like to know, how do you do sound healing with instruments, and what instruments do you play? Can you talk about that a little bit?
I've been interested in the local music because I don't know if you know, but in Nosara, there was the biggest excavation of indigenous instruments that has been found in the whole country.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Do you know
amazing.
anything about the indigenous?
No, tell me. Well, anything. I know some things. I know a lot of friends and clients, and Tico friends in particular, back by the river, have artifacts, and I've seen a lot of interesting stuff, but I've never heard anything about instruments or...
Well, many of these artifacts were ocarinas, you know, like clay flutes. And there has been 5 excavation sites done by the National Museum here. And there has been found over hundreds of instruments, like over 300, I know. There was a whole exhibition of instruments from this area in the museums. And the thing is, like, what happened? Where are these sounds today in Nosara, you know? So I've been in this journey of getting to know those instruments, like remaking them, and especially because we had a music tradition. But do you know anything about Costa Rican music?
No.
And that's what happens to a lot of people that come here. You know, they're here for a week, and it's like, I feel there's a lack of exposure to Costa Rican art. So that has been a bit of my mission.
I see.
Yeah.
What was that phrase you said? What happened to the instruments from here? That's actually a fun album title as you replay and learn it, right? Like, it's cool you're bringing them back to life. That's really freaking cool.
Yes, so actually I was just recording a MIDI sound library of Costa Rican instruments. We recorded over 80 Costa Rican instruments. Yes. So it's really amazing because for me, I felt some sort of calling. I guess I was bored, you know, of always bass and guitar and drums. It's like, come on guys, we have thousands of instruments out there. What's the other sounds? Especially in the world of sound healing, I feel it has become pretty elitistic, you know, like the crystal balls and the gongs are like thousands of bucks, and if you want to be a sound healer, you have to pay all this money. And our indigenous people used to heal with music, and they didn't have these economical resources or all these fancy, shiny instruments. So I've been curious on how did they do that? And there's a very interesting tradition in the Bribri tribe that is the biggest indigenous community, that they had sokolpas, that was like a whole clan of musicians. And there was something called Awa, that is like the spiritual doctor of those traditions.
Okay.
And they used to heal with songs. So what happened? Why aren't we exposed to that? So...
Hey, do you know the answer to that, by the way?
Well, it's a lot due to this mixture of cultures, you know. We have this thing of Costa Rica being a bridge of so many traditions and so much cultures. But especially with the indigenous situation, I feel there has been a lot of discrimination historically. Especially, that's something I've heard from the Chorotegas, the word indigenous that live here in Nosara.
Right.
Actually, Nosara is an indigenous name. And so, yeah, there was a lot of, when the colonization came, the language was taken, the practices, and so basically there has been people making efforts to bring it back. And I've realized that there were like songs for healing specific illnesses, and but there's few people that know them, so it has been a whole journey for me looking for teachers, where to learn this music, learn how to play them, because there's not much, honestly. And at least in my experience, there's like few books here and there.
But there's not a YouTube video that shows you how to bring it all back, right?
So that's why I'm super happy of doing this, because it's like I've been feeling a need to do it.
That's so funny. Well, it's very interesting that we're meeting Big Gringo me, and then Tico you resurrecting the stuff, and I'm playing the singing bowls they call them, and adjusting my guitars. And for me, this all came from a big head injury. I had a really bad head injury a couple years back. And I constantly have a ringing in my head, like all the time. And I lost most of my sense of taste and smell, and I hear very little out of this, but I hear a ringing all the time. And then I went to a plasticity center for people with traumatic brain injuries, and they found the frequency. So they play the ringing, and a couple times a day I can play this ring, and it helps dumb down the noise. And that's, I think, what kind of started it. And then I came across a 432 hertz solfeggio one night when I was really sick. I had dengue. That's what it was. I had dengue. I was in agony. It's late at night, sweating profusely, and just everything. No one's around. It was just me in a house that was being remodeled, and life was horrible. And that sound, I kind of anchored in that sound somehow, some way. Now I am getting hippie. Gee whiz, listen to me. So anyway, I felt it. I didn't know how to describe it. I started telling like family and friends, they're like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I don't know what to say. Like, if I put this by here, this tones down and this just adjusted, I feel it. I honestly feel it. All right, so that's my story. So I'm right with you, which is hilarious. Like if you told me a long time ago, hey, you're gonna have on this guy, he's a hippie dude, he gave up all his jobs to go do this other thing and didn't wear a shirt, and his version of shirt is a scarf, and you're gonna love it, and it's gonna be all interesting to you, I would have never believed it.
That's life, huh?
Life's cool that way.
Yes.
All right, so take us through the instruments again. It sounds like there's like 80. You're reinvigorating this, like bringing it to life. You're part of, am I saying this right? Am I getting too crazy here? It sounds like you're literally trying to go into the past, dissect it, bring it back by creating the instruments and learning to play them.
Something like that, pretty much, actually. Yes, it's a whole journey, and it's interesting because this area of Guanacaste is like the folkloric area of Costa Rica, right? A lot of our culture, musically, actually comes from here. But it's very Spanish-based. It's very European still. What we call folk is very much like, from old Spain traditions. But there's a lot of interesting things. Like, for example, something we've been doing is playing the quijongo, that is like a bow, but you play it as a berimbau, kind of what they use in capoeira. And anyway, the thing is that it creates harmonics, right? Which harmonics are a base of sound healing in general. It's like a very important part of it, which is basically the same that you can do with throat singing in Mongolia. So it's like somehow the past was bonded by sounds, I feel. But for me, honestly, many times I feel sad in Nosara. I'm like, speaking in English, like all this like paying in dollars and how expensive it is. It almost feels like it's not Costa Rica sometimes. So a part of me feels like some sort of guardian of the ancestral traditions, but it's not even my choice. It's almost like some force is like taking me on that journey. So a lot of what I do now is like music ceremonies, like bridging these sounds.
I get it.
The thing is, how do we unite, right? Like, how do we use our powers now? That's what I'm very interested in. Like, I've been feeling a call for collaboration because I'm not trying to judge all this change that we're going through. I feel the beauty of it is like we have so much diversity of music, right? So we can mix these ocarinas from the elders with the guitar and the singing bowls. And I've been dreaming of a sacred orchestra, like really bringing together like the world music into a spiritual practice,
That's a cool band name, by the way. Sacred Orchestra. That's pretty good. Remember that.
Well, you want to join?
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, I'm really wanting to do it. It's because there's this thing nowadays, like everyone is a sound healer, right? Like back at the beginning, when I was doing this, I was like the crazy kid, like not even myself understood what I was doing. But now it's like super popular. It's like, yoga and surf and all these things. Like, if you ask the people 50 years ago, what happened to Nosara? Actually, I don't know if you know, but 50 years ago, the National Commission of Indigenous People came to Nosara, and this was going to be declared Indigenous land. Nosara, 50 years ago, and now, where is the Indigenous? Like,
It's got to be in the sound that you're bringing back. Realistically.
Yeah, that's part of it. Honestly, it makes me super happy, knowing that we have a ground in common, we have somewhere to connect, it's like, because I feel the challenge of these times, of how do we bridge our cultures, right? Different languages, different traditions. Where is like our middle point? And seems like music can be it, and that's why I believe so much in music, because yeah, it somehow feels like it saved my life, and not necessarily because of the specific frequencies or the instruments. It's really about this feeling of what's the purpose of life? It's like, what are we really doing here? Like, as humans. If I think of it, we have asked this question I'm pretty sure you have asked yourself that, right?
Yes, of course.
Yes, that's what I love about music. It's like we don't have to make sense of everything, because it's like our mind is limited, even though we try to explain what we're doing, do we actually know?
I just went in circles for like minutes trying to explain something with words. Because words aren't, every time I said something, it's like, I didn't quite mean it that way. Someone could have heard it that way. Words are very limited in communication, whereas the sound's not. I can play music in a band with somebody or with people, and I feel like we're talking. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying sexually, I'm saying almost more powerfully than that. It's not we're hugging or holding or touching or rooting for the same thing. It's we're inside of that sound creation and I can feel it. Mm-hmm. And that means something to me.
That's the beauty of it. It brings us back to feeling. And I don't know how was it for you, but for me, it was too much in my head. I feel I was addicted to reason, honestly. Like I was trying to make sense of everything.
Explain that further, please.
Well,
Addicted to Reason.
Yes.
That's another song, by the way. for the what was the orchestra name?
Sacred Orchestra.
For the Sacred Orchestra, that's another song name.
Okay, I like this. Yes, it's like, you're here and everyone is like a yogi and meditation and quiet your mind. Like, I'm pretty sure you have tried that, right? Like quieting your mind at some point.
Good luck. It's like taming a raging lion.
Exactly, it's so hard. And then I realized that when I played music, I was like, I'm not thinking. And it was like, like taking a breath. Like my brain was like, finally, you give me a pause. And I was like, didn't realize how healthy that was for me, Especially.
Ironically, that's the point of every major religion, all the mystics, all of everyone who dives deep into the spiritual side reports back that same thing. It's turning off. That's why I have mantras. That's why I have sounds. Even just the act of the om noise, you don't have to be Hindu to understand the scientific benefits. Us humming is therapeutic. We now know that. So again, that's hippie talk, but it's real. So maybe you're onto something not just for Costa Rica and Nosara and Chortega, the culture and all the different stuff. There's a lot of people coming from all around the world here. Mm-hmm. So maybe you can take all the bad that makes you feel bad, but you can convert that into good, because now you can reach someone from, name a country. There's somebody from there here, pretty much.
Yeah. Yes.
You know what I mean? Like how do you bring back a greater good even though there's a negative? I think that's the question.
That's why I've been doing drum circles, and like we're having a singing circle yesterday, because it's this thing of like, unity give us power, right? So, yeah, I think it's a very blessed place to be right now. We have a chance to actually, boom, like bring the whole world through our art.
Where else has more of a chance that's just this magnetic anyway? And you have people from all these different places together, like Nosara could be a model community for this planet. I really believe that. If we just communicate, that's also the inspiration for this podcast. We need information to flow.
Yes.
We're not going to save this place without connecting people. And politics isn't how you connect people. Like, look at the US right now. It's an election year. It's like, it's fire. Music is the one thing that can calm a fire.
I think music can be political, honestly, because it's like, what is politics? It's about power, right? Who has the power?
Energy.
And I think through music, we can get back our power. So, yes, I think I agree a lot with what you're saying of like getting into connection. And the thing is how, right? How to make these spaces. And that's why I'm so grateful with you, actually, like making this space. I was seeing what you have done and like inviting like so many different people to talk with you has been pretty inspiring, honestly.
Well, thanks for coming in. I know we don't have anything in common and haven't met, but it turns out we do have a lot in common.
We do.
That's kind of neat.
Yes, yes. I mean, just playing music, being in the same place, that's, I think, enough to create a relationship. You don't need much than that.
Okay, so you don't need an office building per se for your services, or what do you need to progress your goals? Let's transition into you.
I want to create masterpieces right now. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here, because there's the resources to make that possible, you know. I'm in Nosara because there's like great studios, great musicians, like so much talent.
A lot of talent.
There's such a high density of musicians, like in a high level, that a part of me is feeling that I need to empower myself so I can be like the orchestrator of all this. Like, I know I like that. I'm so devoted to music, honestly. Like, music is really like my prayer. So the thing for me right now is how to make space for all of us to make music together.
Okay.
Like, but really, beyond that, I believe in love, you know. I really think that the purpose of life is love. And I think music can be a channel for that. It sounds pretty hippie, I think, but I actually believe, because I've experienced it, that when we play together and we like what we're doing, it's like, wow, rich. Like, you know, we get to see something deeper than white guy with blue eyes or brown skin.
All that goes away.
Yes.
It's all gone.
So that's what I need, like, for us to see who we truly are.
Seems like you figured out, I don't know how old you are, but it seems like at an early spot in life, you figured out calming the mind or getting away from the thought or the thing is your key to happiness, and you're addicted to that.
Happiness. That's an interesting one. But I would say I'm addicted to love right now.
Well, you can feel that through sound. It's the most pure, fastest way.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yes.
So now you just want more and more and more.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so how do you do that on a greater level here?
I've been through this 7-year period of being a sound healer fully, like being just as a Costa Rican, being able to be a full-time musician.
Yes,
it's like
shout out,
in
man.
Nosara, dude, I feel like I already did it.
won.
Yes, I feel like on the top of the world.
Let's celebrate that for a second, man. Like, congratulations.
Thanks. Yes, I feel very blessed, honestly. So it feels like a responsibility. Honestly, I feel I don't need much right now in my life. I feel like I have everything I need. You know, I don't have a home with beachfront or those things. I live in a humble home, and I don't have a car. I'm moving by bicycle, and you know, it's like, but I have, you know, this time, you know, I have the blessing of, as a sound healer, dude, I feel I'm cheating because nature does half of the work for me. Just those birds, the ocean there, it's like, I actually feel I'm just creating a space for people to be aware of the blessings we have around.
So you're an amplifier.
Yes.
You're collecting what's out there in a funnel, essentially, and amplifying that out to...
Yes, somehow.
What a trip. For me, the internet is what got it to me. So that's why I'm interested in seeing you be able to get this stuff into a way to disseminate the info, because that's how it started to get to me. And I'm just at the very beginning. But it's not going away. I'm just getting more and more into it. I love to play music, and now that I can make something that actually makes me feel better, are you kidding? Like, that's like the biggest gift from God possibly ever. So for me, like the spiritual practices and the meditation techniques and all this stuff, I've tried it. Nothing has been faster than a sound to a vibration to silence the mind. And then the peace can come in, but the peace can't come in when you're focusing on that thing from an external source, as far as an image, or I read this, now I have this emotion. You can take action, but I can't feel it. See what I'm saying? The sound healing, I felt it.
Yeah.
So I don't need the words. I already know how I feel. Like, you
Yes.
can't take that away from me. And I think that's sort of what you're tapping into, that I'm interested in. I want to get more of it.
Yes.
And I'm not alone.
Yeah.
I guess that's why you're making it in Osara, as 7 years as a hippie sound healer.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
Yes, it's honestly impressive. A part of me
That's what I'm
doesn't
saying.
understand how this happened, but it's
Hey, how do they feel about it? Like, when they're introducing their kids, like when they introduce you, is it like, well, this one's off in the jungle without a shirt on, riding a bike, playing music?
yes.
Or is it kind of, they've accepted it? You're not an attorney, you didn't go the legal route.
Yes.
And also, you can tell me to be quiet if I'm getting too private.
No. I love honesty and clarity and different perspective. I feel so nourishing. And I felt very judged in the process. Even my name, Daniel means only God can judge me. And it was kind of heavy for me at some point, because the capitalistic system is not made for people like me easily. It's like, if you take the unknown path, it's like challenging your sense of security and
Identity, relationships, trust,
yes,
all these things.
yes,
You're playing with fire
exactly.
by ironically doing the most natural thing that you feel right about.
Exactly. That was the thing. Like, I felt like there's nothing I could do that feels more healthy to me than following my passion.
Much
Yeah.
respect.
It's not easy though. Like,
What's the hardest part?
doubt, self-doubt.
How do you deal with self-doubt? And you can skip a standard hippie line if you don't mind. Like, be real. Like,
Honestly, once I heard a very hippie question that a friend makes every time she wakes up. She's like, "What can I do for you, great mystery?" She wakes up every day with that question, and it really got me. I was like, how would my life be if I did that? And what I'm trying to say is trust, I'm really trusting, I'm risking my life, I'm like, really like, if I die in the process, I'm all right with it, because I trust so much this path. And it's so wild, it's not logical at all. It's defying all my reason, like all my concepts of how I should live life. But it brings miracles, and it sounds hippie, but the reason why I'm here is also because of one guy from the States came and gave me a piece of land, and it's like I'm getting to record in these amazing studios because, some people from the States has the resources that makes it possible for me to compose this, to be devoted to sacred arts now. So it's like life always gives me like a little like a little taste, like, don't worry, like, we got you. So
is it getting easier as you're deeper into this to know that your future will work out compared to at first where it was like, what am I doing? Or was it at first you took off, you're like, I got this?
No, things are getting better, like, definitely. Because before it was so, like, what am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? And right now it's still the same, but it's like, oh, but I've made it so far. Like, I've always had a home, I've always had food, I always had friends. Like, I've always had everything I need, even though I fear it. So
I getcha.
It's like, now I have no reason to fear,
It seems like your thing wasn't even, well, you have self-doubt and trust were your two components. It sounds to me like you're describing faith.
Yes, I definitely have faith in love and in music. That's where I found spirituality, which is pretty wild, because it's like I was very in my head and I was like, what's this thing of spirituality? Do we even have like a soul, or what is this whole thing of like this hippie movement? Why is all these retreats happening? Like, what's the deal with all of this? And a lot of my work here is working for retreats. So I get some glimpses of concepts and ideas that I honestly live life as not trusting, like not believing anything unless I go through it, like-
Okay, so you go to a spot of feeling it. You transfer you've heard the information, you got to process it.
Yes, exactly. It's pretty wild because if myself 7 years ago heard me talking about miracles and prayers and these things, he would be like, what are you talking about, bro? But nowadays I feel I live in a prayer, and it's pretty wild to see that shift as well. As you were saying, like you're becoming more hippie. I feel I'm becoming devoted to the mystery of life, and it's just pretty wild to say it.
What would you say to yourself 7 years ago right now? Like if you had a platform and you could record it, you could go back in time and see it, what would you say?
I would say, don't be so judgmental. Don't judge a book by the cover. Like, listen beyond the words, beyond the message, what's really being said, what's really being communicated. Because I was a very judgmental person, especially when I was hearing something outside of my belief system. So openness, stay curious on really what's there. Like, why is this information showing up for whomever is seeing this? Maybe there's a chance there's a reason for it. There's something like some sort of message between lines. So yeah.
I'm getting intention. That word keeps coming to my brain as you're talking.
Intention?
Because you're saying in communication being less judgmental. This is the most judgmental I think the planet has ever been. As exemplified by the US election happening right now. Emotions are already there. People who are friends and agree on most things in life, that all that's core and really important, now are yelling at each other. And just name one side. We have Republican and Democrat up there. And it's so intense that healthy conversations and relationships are just kind of discarded when people are inflamed.
Yes.
I think sounds might be what can tear down the barrier.
And once I was in the look of what's the most powerful sound. Like, I was in this research, and it was clearly silence. Like, silence is what makes sounds valuable. So, and there's also this phrase that to be a great musician, you have to be a great listener. And that's why I feel like you are a great musician already, because you're great at listening. And that's also part of why I think somehow we're doing sound healing right now. Because we are really listening. We're making silence for a message to come through. So there's something in the silence that we can all learn. There's a lot of compassion in silence, I believe.
Oh, geez, well, love. You said it best at love. That encapsulates everything. You nailed it. But you have to get so good at your sound therapy that you get to silence. Your dessert is the silence. That's the ultimate thing, ironically, which dissolves everything.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
that old saying, like Yogananda said, when this I shall die, then you shall know who am I. Like, and then, but he's very much into affirmations, very much into chanting of different, everything. And all of that is just a ticket to get to God. Like all these other things are tools, and it's just like God seeing us with our own little play set. How are they going to put that together? How's this guy's going to do this? How's going to...
Yes.
And that might, who knows, maybe that's why things are they are, or how they are.
I think silence is a representation of death somehow. It's like, after all this chattering and expressing our feelings, we go back home and be like, I wonder what we were actually doing. What were we talking about? Like, where is this going? Like, why were we saying these things? But in the silence is where, like, things, like, settle.
Hey, what are your 3 favorite restaurants?
Here.
Or do you even eat food anymore, or do you have sound just as your sustenance?
Well, I wish, but no, I have some neighbors that cook amazing. There's this lady Celia around where I live. She makes these empanadas, dude.
Nice.
And they're like $1 each empanada. Just
Shout
like,
out to her.
Yeah, gracias Celia. I like these Malacrianzas pizzas. They're good.
They have a unique pizza style.
I like
Hey,
them.
you're the second person to say that today.
Yeah, they got something going on there. I'm grateful, man.
And I'm grateful for you coming in. Is there anything else you wanted to get off your chest? Any funny jokes, sarcastic remarks, or anything that you have to put out there? I'm just kidding around. Is there, what would you use this platform for whatever you'd like to?
Well, I've been recording music as Amor Reluciente. That's like my music project.
Okay.
And I also have a band here called Canto Flecha.
Okay.
If you guys want to listen to it, like
I do
would
want to
appreciate
listen to it. All right, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, bro. Pura vida.
Pura vida.